In this episode of Inspired Talks Diaspora series, we have with us Caesar Koirala, sir. He has spent about 20 years around AI, spanning both academia and professional practice. He's currently a lecturer at NYU and Columbia University. He's also a CEO and co-founder of Human Lens AI. As a seasoned professional bridging both academia and industry, he shares with us insights into the evolution of AI, how Human Lens AI came to be, following your vocation, and much more. I hope you learn as much as I did from the conversation. Have fun listening to it. Hi, Caesar. How are you doing?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining the Diaspora series. Sizadai, I know that you've been living in Boston and you've stayed there for a while now. And Boston is a huge metropolitan area. It is one of the largest metropolitan city in the world. Nay. What did you like about living in Boston versus living in Nepal? What differences have you observed? Tell us about your living experience in Boston.
Yeah, very different. Because I grew up from class three. I was in Kathmandu, so I grew up in Kathmandu. Where I grew up now seems very crowded because I lived near Barbertini in Harigau.
Mhm.
But it was always very lively with a lot of culture, and you walk around with your friends, you play with your friends. It's just a social, cultural place, right? Nepal and Kathmandu, everywhere. Um, Here, life is different because, sometimes you go weeks not talking to your neighbors because it's a pretty individualistic society, especially if you live in suburbs. I live in suburbs where you have to be in a car to go everywhere. You don't see people for some times. And two aspect, I think it's different from cultural and societal aspect, and how you talk to people, how you greet people, all of that is different. From other aspect, it's pretty similar, right? It's a city, and living in a city is, I mean, if you go to work, you hop on a train or a, bus, if you especially live near the city or if you're there. And I used to live in the city itself for quite a year here, quite some years here. Any work culture पनि त्यस्तै नै छ. It's pretty fast paced. Everybody, wants to be someone, whether it's Kathmandu where people from different regions of Nepal come and try to make a life. It's pretty similar here where people from different suburbs and different neighboring towns come to Boston, make a life here, so everybody's working hard. Arco aspect might similar because Kathmandu is an education hub for Nepal, right? I mean, everybody comes to Kathmandu to get education mostly. It's very similar in Boston, very similar vibe. There are lots of colleges, lots of very good universities known in the world. And so you see that young energy everywhere here too, right? So in that aspect, I'd say they are very similar too.
From what I know, from what I've seen in movies or what I've heard people say on the internet, they have a very mixed feelings about living in the city and living in a crowded place. Let's say, what is your opinion on that? Do you like living in a crowded place or do you like living in the city?
There's no one answer to that. I
Mhm.
like being close to people. And for that reason, I really enjoy living in New York because New York, you're always close to people. There's a very similar vibe like Kathmandu when it comes to New York. It's people all around, people pushing, trying to go inside the train kind of situation, right? So it's similar, and I like that. And I also like living in a city like New York or Kathmandu because you have everything you desire nearby you, right? So you have restaurants, you can just go hop by and have any kind of food you want. It's just lively and nice to be in a city like that. Boston is not exactly that in my view. Boston is a city, but it's not like, Kathmandu or New York where city is always alive. It still has that small town vibe somehow, and it's not overcrowded like New York or Kathmandu. So Which one do I prefer? I prefer lively areas, but then I think as I'm growing older, I also really appreciate peace and quiet time sometimes. It's impossible to get that in New York, in my opinion, unless you live in suburbs again. And that's why I moved to suburbs in Boston as well, because raising a family in a quieter area, safer area is always better, right?
So moving on to your working experiences, I know that you've been interested in AI or you've been working in the area for a while now. You also taught AI at Copa Engineering College back in 2003, and you're also currently a CEO and co-founder of Human Lens AI, which we'll get to that in a bit in later on. You've consistently worked on AI ethics and responsible AI. So, what evolution in AI have you observed throughout these years while working in the industry? What has been the change in perspective or users or advancement from your experiences?
That's a great question, but we could keep on talking about it for an hour. So I'll try to maybe tease a few things apart there, right? Uh, you're right. I've been interested in AI for a long time now. And it goes back to when we were taught AI, probably around 2001, if I remember. We had a professor from India who came specially to teach AI. And I fell in love with that class. And it was a weird situation because I don't know, you know how Nepal bandhas were very common in Nepal.
Yeah.
There was some kind of education shutdown during that time, if I remember. And we couldn't go to college, but we already had a professor who came all the way from India. So what my college did was they booked an apartment or a house for him somewhere where we would go every day and study AI with him when
That is
everything was shut
very
down.
forward of Nepalese college. This is very surprising to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then it was, it was so nice because, we just go to his apartment, everybody's just sitting on the floor or sofa or wherever, and then he's talking to us about AI and teaching AI. And it was such a nice environment for me, and the way he taught it was so relatable. It wasn't that we're, writing something on board and, how sometimes education can get where there's a lot of rote learning involved and you're trying to just internalize things without understanding it. It was completely opposite of that. He really explained the fundamentals of AI well. It just triggered something in me that this is what I want to do. This is what I want to learn more about, right? And luckily I got opportunity to teach AI after I graduated from college. One thing led to another. I felt like I wasn't doing a good job of teaching because I wasn't an expert, so I wanted to get my master's in AI. That brought me here to United States to study master's in AI. That's a separate story. Um, going to second part of your question on what kind of evolution have I seen?
Yeah.
Um, the first part probably tells you how uncommon it was to study AI or do anything in AI back
Yeah.
then, especially in Nepal, right? We're
Yeah.
very few people who could teach AI. So I was teaching in two places or three places sometimes, part-time. Um, and coming here, it still felt the same because nobody knew AI. Like if I told somebody I'm doing masters in AI, I'd have to start from what AI meant. I would always have to start from what AI meant. What am I trying to study? What am I trying to do? Right? It was never as easy as now, where literally everybody knows what AI means, and it's easy if you say I'm studying graduate degree in AI. Jobs had similar situation, right? So I graduated my master's. Um, there were a few government jobs, maybe high security, kind of jobs, but they were not common jobs in AI or machine learning. So it was difficult to get a job. Right now, if you say I'm an AI engineer, probably you have 100 jobs lined up for you.
Yeah.
Then you would have to find a relatable job, right? So let's say, oh, you don't have anything in AI, but I can code. I'll just go work on something else and figure out how to do with the AI aspect that I've learned and know, right? So it was difficult to find a job on the landscape of AI. Most people focused on what we call I would call machine learning, classical machine learning at this point, because people really focus on generative aspects of machine learning now. But machine learning means a lot of thing. AI means a lot of thing, and we focus on different aspects of AI then, not just generative AI like Claude or Chat GPT. So I saw that evolution um, from where the generative AI became more and more popular, the core of AI, the backbone, let's say the algorithms becoming stronger and stronger in some senses, or more capable. So there was a whole evolutions from symbolic AI and other forms of AI to what we see now in the last 20 years that I've seen. Um, like I said, I can keep on talking about this. So let's pause there. If there are any follow-up questions, I'm happy to answer that.
Yeah, sure. But let's move on to an AI that you are currently building, Human Lens AI, that works on, from what I know, AI governance. It overlooks model building to reviewing to deployment. Um, with respect to governance, why has governance, AI governance, become important today, and what acts or what rules have you observed governments take or companies take with respect to regulation of AI use or other things that you've noticed? Tell us about this.
That's a great question. My first interest let's back up, right? So
Mhm.
when we say AI governance, what does it mean? For, for your audience listening to this podcast, it could mean many things. It could mean following compliance and laws and rules. It could mean making sure your AI is not putting people at risk, regardless of laws, right? For example, you must have heard about even before generative AI or LLMs, there were lots of cases of AI being biased against people, and then also showing discrimination, right? So they were hiring-based AI that people might have heard of from Amazon. There was a lot of financial institutions that deployed AI for credit and other cases where they were found biased against different demographics, like maybe old people or people of color and so on and so forth, right? So it's not just about laws and rules. It could also be about fairness and equitable society, but it could also just mean is your AI accurate and reliable, right? I mean, with the current forms of AI, the getting a consistent result every time you're executing it is not easy, or nobody has shown that it can be done at a good cadence. And then that's and then you see hallucinations and other things in AI right now, right? So there's compliance aspect of it, there's fairness aspect of it, and we're touching on accuracy aspect of it now. But people also care about privacy and security. So AI governance could mean a lot of things here. Right, that's one thing, and I think everybody should care about that. Everybody should be, even if you don't care about anything else, and you're developing AI model, you want your AI model to be accurate so that it does what you're intending it to do, right? So everybody should care about that. And that's why it's important now than earlier, because earlier you had classical AI models where the outputs were fairly predictable,
Mhm.
and so they could be used in even the regulated industries like financial institutions like banks or healthcare, insurance. You could use them fairly consistently because the results were consistent and accurate. Um, Now with LLMs, it's become harder to have the same level of accuracy and consistency. So, AI governance has become more important now than before. Um, and especially in the regulated industry like banks and healthcare and HR, let's say recruiting. If these are the areas where first you want to do the right thing. You don't want to put somebody at harm, let's say in healthcare, but then also there are laws that will prevent you from doing that. And so AI governance is just, it had like the laws and rules were already there for classical forms of AI. Many states in the United States have their own laws and rules for AI governance. At the federal level, we haven't seen anything yet. But EU and other countries are coming up with their own versions of AI governance laws. So hopefully these laws will make sure that people take governance of AI seriously,
Mhm.
which I don't think most people are doing right now, unfortunately.
Can you also tell your experiences working in the industry as a skilled professional versus starting something of your own? Those two are very vastly different from one another. Requires different set of skills. I'm assuming different workloads, different kind of other things that comes with starting something new. Can you also share something about how Human Lens AI got started and what was the inspiration for you to start Human Lens AI?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I think about that a lot too. I mean, I did this, but why did I do it? So you have to think about why you take some actions, right? Um, You know, there are a couple of reasons here. One is, as told you, and as we have been talking about, I've seen this landscape of AI change and grow and become different. Another thing that I was lucky and I was blessed to have is I got exposure to a lot of domains. When I say domains, different sectors that use AI, right? So I've worked in human resources as a data scientist. I've worked in forensic investigations and fraud. I've worked in products, right? So I got to see where the risks of AI are lower and where risks of AI are higher, right? So when, let's say, if I worked as a data scientist at an edtech company where, I was looking at things like, how do I predict if a sentence is one sentence is more complex than another, or one word is more difficult than another. And the way I was, and the reason I was doing it was we were working in products that were tailored for English language learners,
Mhm.
and it had different difficulty levels. So if you can take a, and the way they would learn is they would be provided with learning materials that is interest of for them, as well as it is at the same difficulty level that they can actually learn at, right? So it's almost like gamification of learning, where you're getting, let's say, learning material. If you like soccer or football, then you always get learning materials based on football, but then it's also at the difficulty level that you can actually digest it, right? So back in 2012 to 15, when I was working on this, we didn't have the same technology, but we had machine learning, natural language processing, and other things where, we try to match right people with the right text. You try to match right difficulty level of the user. Um, so their error of AI might not be as bad as, let's say, now I'm working HR
Yeah.
and we're using AI to hire somebody, and I consistently hire one type of people because AI was trained in a wrong way. And it's always recommending, let's say, hire men hire men, keep on hiring men between 18 to 24, let's say. That has happened in real life, right? So I could see that the risks are different from one area to another. I could see that evolution. And then I also got exposure to this at a really grand scale in my last job because I was in an AI governance team, responsible AI team at a healthcare company, United Health Group, where I was part of, reviewing the models and approving the models, or asking people to do, different mitigation strategies for models. That just gave me a perspective of, look, I'm a data scientist who knows how to build models.
Yeah.
I'm also somebody now who knows how to analyze these models and do the right thing. That intersection is something where I should do bigger than just help one company. I can do bigger things and better things with what skills I have now. And only thing I could think of is, why don't just go and build something of my own and try to bring all those expertise for past 12 years and different experiences I've gained
Yeah.
into this company. And so, it was not, one day's thought or anything like that. I wanted to do something like this, and now I feel like I'm ready to do this, and that's why I'm doing it.
So you'd say Human Lens AI is a sum of all the um, learning experiences you've had in the industry. Would I be right in saying that?
It's better you put something that I use probably 4 minutes of my time to say in one sentence. So yes, exactly.
Uh, okay. So AI has been a consistent theme in your career. Another consistent theme in your career, I would say, from my point of view, is teaching. It is a vocation that I'm assuming that you've consistently pursued. What drives you to teach? What are some of the practices that you employ as a lecturer in NYU and in Columbia that makes for effective learning? Looking back on your experiences with the lecturer from India, what are some of the practices you employ to ensure effective teaching?
Yeah, teaching is another aspect where I honestly think about it a lot. Like why I started Human Lens. I think about why do I teach and why do I like to teach? Um, I think I've realized a couple of things.
Mhm,
Some might sound funny, and
mhm,
some might sound rational, but I don't know if rational is the right one or the funny is the right one. Um, I I'm an introvert naturally. Teaching never came naturally to me. I remember going to Kopa Engineering College back in 2003. I hadn't even graduated Nepal Engineering College yet.
mhm,
I had submitted my thesis, but I didn't know whether I've graduated or not yet. Right? I'm I'm already starting to teach guys and girls. I mean, students who are probably around my same age.
mhm,
Um, I go in my first lecture. I vividly remember my first lecture. I go in front of the students. I try to speak. I try to teach. 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I'm shaking. I just say, that's it for today. Thank you. I leave the class. I thought I would never go back to a class and teach again because that was so scary for me. And then I just practiced insanely on how to teach. And I probably spent about 5 to 8 hours per lecture for next whole year, where I would read multiple books, prepare notes, practice in front of mirror, and then go teach the class. What happened out of that is slowly, I got confident. But what I heard my students say, and they have said this to me in person as well, they always say that you always take something that's very difficult and make it so simple, right? And so simple for us to understand, and that we really like that. I taught some of the most difficult subjects in computer science, AI being one of it, and then there's another subject called theory of computation, which is very theoretical and mathematical and hard. And that's when students used to tell me that, you simplify it so much that it's so nice to learn from you. So now the funny aspect, so that's the rational aspect where I really practice and I got better at it. And now I want to keep on doing it because now I enjoy it, right? That's the rational one.
yeah.
Uh, the funny one I would say is, even though I'm an introvert, everybody craves for attention, craves for that validation from people, right? I
Yeah.
feel like when I teach or when I'm singing and somebody's hearing me, I feel like I'm being validated, I'm being appreciated by somebody, right? And I don't know which part is true, but I like teaching it. It's almost like performance for me. I'm performing in front of people, and then I hope they are liking it and they are getting something out of this, right? So that's the funny part. But I think about it. I feel like why do I teach? Because it pays pennies even here. It doesn't pay as a part-time lecturer. It pays nothing. Like I couldn't pay, 1 month's rent by teaching a whole semester. So, like I mean, it doesn't pay me. So
Uh-huh.
why do I do it? I think about it a lot, and
Yeah.
something like that, something along the line. I might just think about it more and see why do I teach?
Mhm. Very interesting. What has been some of the heartwarming or positive experiences from your students that you look back on that inspires you to teach within your teaching career?
Yeah, so I didn't answer your question completely. I just remembered. What are some of the techniques that I use to make sure that I'm doing effective teaching, right? So I go back to my early days
Yeah.
and think about, why did these students come to me and say, it's simple now, I can understand it, I can do better. Why did they say that? And what is different between me now and then? I think the difference is I didn't know much. I was pretty naive. Like, I mean, I'm teaching AI. What did I know about AI then? In 20 years, I've gained something, I've learned something, but what did I know about AI then, right? And what happened was then I could think like them, you know. I just graduated. I was about the same age. I knew almost the same thing as them. And now I have to put myself in, I was, you know, without noticing, I was putting myself in their shoes and thinking like them on which parts of this course might be difficult for them, which parts might be easy. How can I simplify the difficult part? How would I learn this, right? Because I was also learning then, and it
Mhm.
was and my mind works like I break complex things into simple things and learn that way, right? So
Yeah.
I think I think that's the part I enjoy as well, and I think that's what I've tried to take throughout my, teaching at university when I was a PhD student there, or now teaching at Columbia and NYU. I like breaking complex things and then putting in front of the students so that, I want to relate. I like relating with them and meeting them where they are. I think that helps a lot because sometimes we forget that because we are the experts in the area, right?
Yeah.
And that's not serving the students well, I would say.
Yeah. That a similar experience. I have not taught anyone in a professional manner by any means, but when you do teach someone about something that you know proficiently, uh, it is very easy to assume that someone else already understands the basics. But it's a wholesome experience altogether. Teaching and learning go hand by hand. I'm sure you've learned along the way while you taught as well. So, yeah.
100%, 100%. I learn in my both classes now that I teach. I think I learn in every class because, now I teach a master's class and a doctorate class.
Mhm.
Um, Fantastic cohort all the time.
Mhm.
And then they always bring the perspectives that I hadn't thought of. And
Mhm.
especially in my doctorate class, the people they come are already leaders and they
Mhm.
have worked for several years in different areas. And they bring perspective that I would have never thought of
Uh,
because I'm a technical person, I'm an engineer, and
mhm.
suddenly they will bring things from, let's say, education or somewhere. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is a very novel perspective that I hadn't thought of. So you're continuously learning when you're teaching for sure.
Yeah. I think we've come to almost the end of our series. For the last question, can you tell us what are some of the things that young professionals or junior professionals should look out for when they're applying for competitive jobs in foreign land? What are some of the things that mattered? What things helped you along the way to land respectable positions in respectable company as a skilled professional? What has been your experience on this?
Well, I'll tell you my personal experiences, and then I'll try to also talk about broader things and what people might be able to do, right? Because not everybody's situation is the same. My journey is very different from somebody who's trying to make a journey right
Mhm.
now, because the world has changed. What helped me is, and I wouldn't pretend it was my foresight, but I got into field that had very few professionals, but that was rising gradually, right? So I got into AI. I studied AI, and there were not many people who knew machine learning or natural language processing or AI. And so for me, my journey was relatively easier compared to many other people, because you know people just on LinkedIn and other places, people reach out offering me jobs. And I was very blessed to be in that position because I had very unique set of capabilities that not many people had. Um, so for me, my initial years were pretty no, I would say easier than others in some senses, right?
Mhm.
Um, then it also started getting harder because it wasn't just the technical skill set to, rise in the ranks and to go in the manager level and others. You need a different kind of skill set. And there, it was definitely a struggle and learning again within the companies and outside the companies on how to present yourself, how to think about other aspects of workplace than not just the project or technical aspects like common skills and project management and other things, right?
Yeah.
So I would say so that's my journey. I think my journey was relatively easier than other people because I was in a unique place and on high demand areas, right? So
Yeah.
that could translate to what people are doing right now is you could you could build a skill set if you know how to recognize what's upcoming and what's trendy and where there are not a lot of professionals who can do this. You could build that skill set and you have a better chance of succeeding than let's say everybody wants to be AI engineer now and everybody goes and learns AI. Then you are like everybody else.
Mhm.
And do you want to focus on certain areas of AI where there are not a lot of professionals and then go there? I
Mhm.
think like, separating yourselves from the herd
Yeah.
can really help you, right? So that
Mhm.
translates to that. And then also, this learning aspect where I had to learn new things along the way. This
Mhm.
learning as like thinking of so here's one thing I would say, right? So don't think of job my mindset was don't think of your job as something that's providing you money.
Mhm.
Think of job as something who's providing somebody who's providing you free training and education or paid training and education. They are literally paying you to learn more. And if you go with that mindset and where you don't feel like, oh, I have to do this today again, but
Yeah.
do the mundane task and see what can you learn today? How can you go to your manager and say, do you want me to try this? Like right now, somebody would say, like, everybody's
Yeah.
talking about agents. Do you want to try building it? I can spend some more time. And then you get mentorship, you get opportunity, right? So
Yeah.
I would say if you have that mindset, you might be able to grow. I say I acknowledge that I understand the world is different right now and getting jobs are harder. So I acknowledge that, but I just feel like there are some learnings there where you could be able to separate yourselves from the herd, try
Yeah.
to gain some skills that are unique, and then
Yeah.
just try. I mean, another theme I would say, like we talked about, this learning and teaching, AI. Another try is I've failed so many times. I mean, nobody talks about that.
Mhm.
But I got a job at Meta, and everybody says, "Oh, wow, wow, that's great. You got a job at Meta." Do you know how many times I applied to Meta? I don't even remember. I have probably applied 30 times or 35 times. I don't remember how many times I applied to Meta, and finally somebody gave me a chance to work there.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like I applied to Meta, they accepted me. Wow, you're brilliant, or something like that. I try, I keep on trying,
Yeah.
and that works, right? So not giving up, not giving up, and you keep on trying is another third. I would say, I hope the new professionals follow that.
Yeah. Another thing that comes to my mind when you say don't follow the herd is something that can be a little difficult to distinguish between an area that is dying out and an area that is looking to grow. How do you distinguish between these two?
Yeah, yeah, and you're absolutely right. That's why I was saying it's easier said than done, and
Yeah.
also, I can say that now because things have. I'm blessed that things have worked out for me, so I can say that I can make statements like that. But
Mm.
I never guessed that AI will be this big, and I'll get opportunity to do wonderful things in my life. I didn't get I had no idea. So to pretend that I knew or somebody can know
Yeah.
is wrong. What I would say is, though, like I followed my passion, and I just like continue to do that when people were sometimes even laughing at me, right? I mean, I remember when I said I'm going to study masters in AI, And everybody like everyone's coming here to get masters in computer science or computer engineering. Like, what is it? What are you trying to do? Like, what will happen out of it? So I said, nothing. I don't know, but I like it. I'm passionate about it. And I want to do it. So doing something that you are passionate at and being really good at it is what you want to do. And let's say there are not a lot of jobs on your field, but you're so good at it that out of 10 jobs that are available, if you get one of those, that's helpful, right? So I would say, I won't pretend. There might be ways, there might be signals now that you can say, okay, this job will be trendy in 10 years.
Yeah.
But just following your path, then you don't want to just do that because you want to be employed in 10 years, but you also want to follow your passion and what you want to do
Yeah.
work on. Because if you are passionate and working on something every day, you become an expert, and experts are needed all the time. Hey.
Uh, Very well put, I must say. Just sum up some of the things that have worked for you are to follow the things that have struck you in your heart, whether that comes to teaching or whether that comes to following something in AI, and consistently pursuing what you want is some of the things that have worked for you.
Yeah, I mean, again, you took like 2 minutes of my lecture and said in 20 seconds, so thank you.
No. But I think we've come to almost the end of our session. Thank you so much for the wonderful conversation. This was very insightful. I had so much fun talking to you. As a signing off note, would you like to say anything to our audience?
No, thank you again. Thank you for having me here. It was my pleasure to talk to you about me. You don't get to do that often. Uh, um, there's no word of advice per se, but I would offer that if anybody is trying to figure their work life, and really trying to figure their education, anything, I'm happy to help out as much as I can, as much as my time allows to. I love doing that, connecting people, helping them navigate life, and so yeah. If anybody anybody wants any kind of support that I can provide, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you so much for your words and for joining us. For the audience, Caesar Sir's profile will be available on IT Hunt Nepal, and you might also want to connect with him on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for joining us, for gracing the Diaspora series. Yeah,
Thank you, Sukriti. Thank you for having me again.
yes, thank you.